In the final third performance, you will hear an original theme based on rhythm changes called Maybe Not, in Dutch, Misschien Ook Niet. Here you will see transmutated improvisational material on a classical guitar, works in up-tempo chord progressions like the 1-6, dominant 2, 5 and dominant chains, followed by a contrasting open form movement where I will explore if and how the material used affects open form improvisation. In this performance you will hear the melodic lines on rhythm changes which have their own harmonic implications, either of a model or of an interval design character. Conversely, in this case the harmonies, sometimes derived from incomplete chords, do not give a complete picture of the melodic lines for the improvisation. However, this is not intended to be a comprehensive treatise of the history of rhythm changes in the way they developed with all its harmonic variants. In the context of this study, it's a means to contrast the assumption that the classical guitar in popular music would primarily function as world music, model, fusion, or chord melody arranging. In these popular changes, the 1-6-2-5 progression plays an important role in the first bars of each A section. In the melody lines over the A section, the 6th dominant is being followed as much as possible, and also the measure 6 of the 4th degree and raised 4 in measure 7. However, not every note of the solo lines will be represented in the chord symbols and vice versa. It turned out to be a two-part piece with a first movement with the 32 bars theme arranged as a standard AABA song form, then a second movement as a contrasting extended collage of 3 collective improvisations. The arrangement is theme, choruses guitar 1, interlude, choruses guitar 2, a bass solo, then a second movement with open collective soloing and a closure of the A1 and A2 of the theme. During the repetitions on the recording session, there were no instructions to the other players except form instructions in the first part. There were 2 rehearsal takes for adjustments. Then there were 3 video audio takes recorded. For this streaming episode, I want to highlight the following aspects with a number of features for transmutation. Single note solo from guitar 1 with the arpeggio melody effect. Then the fingerstyle chord voicings in the accompaniments. The reharmonization in the accompaniment where you see cluster coloring of harmony over the rhythm change progression. And open freestyle second movement interactions. The lineup with the archtop plectrum playing of guitar 2 is not a detailed comparison of playing in a certain manner and material use, but a reflection on the interaction and response of the two sources themselves. First, I will explain some characteristics of transmutation in the single note soloing. In Alone Together and in Blues in Goes, we have seen chord similarities to 20th century guitar solo works. In Maybe Not, you can hear similar references applied in the single note lines. In Leo Brouwer's Elogio de la Danza, for instance, you can notice the use of the open string sound in harmony in measure 2 of his score. This sound. And in the instrumental sequential melodic runs of page 3 of his score. So I use both ideas that turned out to be this for the harmonic sound. I moved 2 notes 1 step lower. From here I found 4 groups of 3 notes. And from this I made a scale. Now you see a B flat 7 altered scale in which assembled note groups can be played by way of single note improvisation. If I play the two A parts with this scale, it sounds something like this. 2, 3, 4. In the performance I use bits of this material. For instance, in the opening over the A part you see an arpeggio melody. These notes are played corda a corda. Historically, the historic term is campanella. One note to the next note with a whole step interval distance to the next string. You see a run with the open G string and the B string, showing press notes combined with an open string for the effect of flow. Then in the third example, in measure 5, you see the notes for B flat 7 altered chord and also for G7, a note group polymetrically divided over two measures with an open B and an E string. You hear a legato arpeggio sound. In the first accompaniment for the solo of guitar 2 and the bass solo, you can also see the contour and harmonic impression of the 1-6-2-5 sequence in an allusion to tritone dominant substitutes. You see here a staggered Segundgang in the notes of B, A flat, G. Let's see the first part of this performance. In a performance you can find an enumeration of events, but there are too many to mention all the interactions in this description. Regarding the rhythm changes part, the number of events is a result of the familiarity with the rhythm changes, which is an implicit form of common knowledge. The uptempo stimulates many rhythmic variations and interactions. The concept of one fits all about rhythm changes in the improv lines. For the second movement, you can see the interactions and textural characteristics which indicate transmutation in a time event table, just as in a time event table of the previous pieces. The events, some of them micro-events, occur as synchronization, supporting, contrasting, following, initiating and responding, driving and forward motion. As you can see in the fourth column, there are a lot of changing expressions, too much to get into detail in this presentation. They will be in the written essay soon to be published. Remarkable is in the second contrasting part, the forward motion and driving are absent as event characteristics. Now I show you a few expressions which manifest themselves as rumble of guitar 2, basso ostinato, a motive divided between two guitars, initiation of quarter triplet notes, rocket figurations of guitar 2 for a new transition, catching of the E notes of the bass by guitar 1 as a cue for closing. Then there is a closure with the A parts of the head from the beginning theme. The improvised contrasting epilogue with transitions, a basso ostinato, a triplet prolongation and a closure as completion of the particles. This was created without trial and error, but responding to very short events, one upbeat or otherwise, of less than a second, as if reading composed material, but the players did not receive instructions how to play the open improv part, but they just received instructions about the order of the beginning part, the 32 bar, the routine, interlude, order of solos, etc. There was no countdown for the takes and no deliberate physical cues were given. The beginning theme provides a set of sonic characteristics that serves as a beginning state for the start of the improvisations. Transmutative elements here to be found are fingerstyle chord structures, polyphonic accompaniments and interactions, arpeggiated melody, collective style changes to contemporary pulse and non-pulse material, polymetric arpeggios played in time. The identification system table now looks like this. In the expression item you see 5 aspects that determine the distinctive influence of the classical guitar on jazz. So now let's see the second part of this performance. final result is the sum of both the transmutation of the classical guitar in jazz and the susceptibility of the musicians to them, as an extension to the first two performances and all four musicians who participated. A reference to Gunther Schuller's classical sensibilities can be made in jazz.